Hi guys, Cross-State Predator Trapper back with another trapping prep video. Today we're looking at tuning and maintenance on traps or coil spring foothold traps. We're going to cover mostly coyote sized traps like the Bridger number 2, Bridger number 3, and the MB550. But we'll also touch base on some 1.5 and number 1s long springs that you would use for muskrat or mink as well. Yeah, so we'll go on that, and then we'll probably have a separate video for doing body kill or body grip traps like conibears and such. Not a lot really that you got to do with conibears. They're a fairly maintenance-free trap that I have found, but your footholds and your coil springs definitely take some tuning and perfecting. So let's get at her and show you what we do. Alright guys, so we have 3 traps here. These are the 3 types of canine traps that I run. The Bridger number 2 dogless, the Bridger number 3 regular dog, and the MB550 4 coil rubber jaw. All of these have caught coyotes. All of these have held coyotes. But if I had to pick an absolute favorite, it would be the MB550 4 coil single jaw or rubber jaw. Simply because they have more spring power to push the jaws up through any frozen ground that I might have. My number 2 dogless, I trimmed back these here extra rods because we were having issues with, the coyote would get that on there and then they start bending and you'd have all kinds of issues. So I just eliminated that by cutting these shorter. This one obviously did not get that done. So this one might get a beefer kit put on it, and all that is another 2 coils here, basically making it a 4 coil trap. This one was originally flagged for a bent pan. I did kind of straighten it out here before I got the camera going, but all I did for that was I just took my pan tension device, slid her under there, came over here and give her a few taps on the end with the hammer. Get that out of there now. And it looks not bad. The best way I find to find out if you're sitting high, sitting low, or whatever you might be, set your trap, bring it down onto the night latch. That's another thing. I got a bit of dip formed up in the night latch. So this year I got to go and take and just hit it with the file a little bit, knock that dip out of there. Then you can hear the audible click. You can still feel it when I set the trap, but you can't hear it. So sometimes you got to really pay attention. But you can see now that pan is sitting pretty nice and level, right where I want it. Doesn't stick above the jaws very high at all, because when I do set this in the ground, it is maybe a bit more like that, but still works very good. Well, we got this trap set this time. We're going to take our Sullivan's trap pan or trap tester, and we're just going to see what we are at for pan tension. I run mine 2.5, 3 pounds, and I aim right for the center of that. So we're 1 pound, 2 pound, coming on to 3, 3.5, 4. Oh, and she didn't fire, but it did drop. So that means I bent it too much, and it's not actually sliding off the jaw here. So we're going to set this back up. Actually, we're going to try and fire it. Okay, see? Good thing we checked. I'm going to take the tension right off and then push And yeah, no, she's not gonna do her. Okay. So what that means is I got too much bend in her there. See, will she fire now? Nope. So take the pressure right off the jaws here. There we go. Just got to give her a bit of a tap here. Yeah, I don't like that at all. So give that a tap. And we'll look at this here. See, what do we need to do? And looks like alright, so that we flattened that out a bit. There's a bit of a hump in there you seen before. Maybe you could or couldn't, but definitely was. So got that flattened out. And now that this here slides past the jaw a lot nicer. Alright, got that sitting on the night latch. Everything looks hunky-dory. Come back in with our trap pan tester. And we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got to loosen that off a little. Not a lot, but just a little tweak. Now to do that, on these Bridger dogless, there's a bolt and a nut on either side. And this is what plays with your pan tension. So I just take a pair of little channel locks here that I got. Find a nice size here. Oh, maybe we'll go open a little bit more. Go to the next notch here. And grab my vice grips, because I don't see my other pliers. And we'll just get this latched on here. Now we were at 4, so we got to loosen off just a little tiny bit, and it does not take much adjustment on that nut to change your pan tension quite a bit. So either you're going to play with this for quite some time, or you're going to just very minute changes. So here we go again, center the pan. And we didn't even get to 1 that time. I would call that a hair trigger. Definitely not what we want. So you just come back in here with your tools. Grab onto that. There we go. We just gave her about 1/8 of a turn. It's really all it takes. Does not take much to move these. Check my level. Good there. Alright, come in with our pan tester. Center of the pan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5. Too much. So you can see, there we go, we're set, night latched, fan tensioner, 1, 2, okay, we're about 2.5. And as long as we're above 2.5 again on this one, we're going to call her good. One, two. We're 2.5 to 2 3/4 on that one. When I was looking, I'm going to call that good on that one. A little bit later, we'll probably end up using this more for a fox trap anyhow, so I'm okay with that. Now we move on to our bridger number 3. You want to make sure your dog is out and over. Now these guys are not night latched. Pan sitting a little high, but we got some play. Sitting pretty nice right there. Now, yes, I could have a more solid workbench. That'd probably give me, or a solid device to set these in and test these. That would probably give me a slightly more accurate reading. See where you're at. We're at 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4. So we can come back a tiny bit on this one. Now, again, on the bridgers, we got a screw head on this one and a nut. So if I just have a quick look here, I typically keep a Phillips screwdriver right handy. However, I don't see it. Okay, I am back with my screwdriver. And so we're just gonna lock onto there. Grab hold on that nut. And it's easier if you can see what you're actually doing here. And just a slight loosen off. Set it. If you guys aren't real good at setting traps, or you're struggling with it, you will become really good at it over the summer by the time you go through, do your modifications, do some practice trap setting, wow, I don't think that was even half a pan, so definitely a bit too much on that one. And that was only maybe an 1/8 to 1/4 turn that I did on that. If you're just wondering how much, you know, how much would be too much, 1/4 turn, you'll drop all the tension off there. All right. Center of the pan. We're at 1, 2, 3. Right on the money. It's right where I want it to be. Looks good. Trap's in good order. We're on our Wolfang. Okay, so now we're moving on to our MB550 coil spring. As you can see, there's no bolt or nut assembly to adjust the pan tension with these. What you have to do is right on the end of that night latch, right where that little notch is, on the very tip, is just file that down so it's a slight slope on there. It doesn't take very much filing to make changes, so definitely take your time. 1 or 2 little swipes with the file at a time, and we'll see where this one's at. So now that we got this big brute set, we're just going to come in here until we hear the night latch. You hear that audible click. That's our night latch. And if we look, that pan is sitting real nice. And just get this propped up here like we had yesterday, so it's nice and solid. Grab our pan tester, and as always, aim right for the middle. We're at 1, 2, 2.5. So that's perfect. That's right where I want it. I'll get this here tester out of here. Oh. Yeah, these new ones here, they're definitely got some power to them. There we go. So I'm going to get some cheaters. Basically, they're just the handles that slide over there, and it'll give us more leverage to pry these open. So along on this one, if our pan was not level, and also on our number 3 bridger, if our pan was not level, the way that we would adjust that would be with a trap pan adjuster. And you can get these at pretty much any hardware, not hardware, but trap supply store. This one was about 20 bucks. And it just slips. Slips right onto the notch here where the dog attaches to. It's a little bit of a tight fit on this bridger. And then you would just simply move it in to bring the pan down, or move it out to bring the pan up, depending on which way you have to go. But as you probably recall, that number 3 was right on the money. The same thing with the MB550s. Just slips right on. This one goes on a little better. And you would just bend it in. Lowers the pan, bend it out, raises the pan. But this one also was sitting right where we want it to be. Yes, the strap's got some rust on it, but you caught my earlier video. I bought this strap, set the pan tension on it, and threw it out in the field to see how it would go. And we did well. We caught a nice big coyote on it. Second day out. So I'm very happy with that. Now, because I know not everyone runs big canine traps, some guys use some smaller water traps. You know, that's what they prefer to target, is their water animals. Even I target a few water animals with these here leg holds, long spring leg holds. 1.5, these are number 1. Pretty much can't use these anymore, but these 1.5s I use for muskrat and mink. I run basically no pan tension on mine, because if I get just a real baby muskrat coming through, I want him to fire it. So, and in fact, I don't think I've ever taken a pan tester to these number 1.5s, but let's just see where it's at, just for curiosity's sake. Yeah, that's probably about a half a pound. But if you noticed, when I had that sitting there and set, my pan was kind of high, so take my pan adjuster, give that a bend, and now you can see my pan sits down in the jaws. And with muskrat, weasel, and mink, they're very quick animals. See, I like to know that their foot's right down deep in that pan before they're gonna fire it. So that's why I like a nice low pan like that on those. I guess just a little safety tip here. I should be doing it, but especially for new guys. You see, I was reaching over top of the jaws. If you come in with your pan and push up from the bottom, you can roll your finger out. Far less chance of it getting caught. So if you work from underneath the loose jaw, much better results that you're not going to catch your fingers. Even on my big canine traps, I try and work from underneath the loose jaw as much as I can. This little number 1. pretty much a good gopher trap nowadays. I don't think there's many species that you can actually use a number 1 leg hold for. Number 1.5 on a drowner is pretty much all that you can use. I am looking into getting some coil spring traps to replace these here ones. So they might not be around here much longer, but that's the way it is. And that's pretty much, I think, all I have to tell you guys on maintaining traps. Later on here in the summer, once it gets warmer outside, and warmer I mean in like 25 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius outside, we will dip these traps in a trap dip. I use a water-based formula from Foreshine Lures, same place I get all my lure from. It's a really good dip, I call it. You mix it up according to the directions, and then just dip your traps in, hang them up on the side of your shed on a fence or whatever to let them dry. I prefer to hang traps, just that way you don't get any globs of dip anywhere that settle and could cause issues for you during the season. But we'll get into that once the snow melts and it's warm outside. So we'll stay tuned for that video. One other thing I guess I could show you is just cleaning dip out of the night latches on the dogless here. I'll just give that a little demo. So on our number 2 dogless, I never did this last year, and I kind of didn't really think you needed to, but once we got out into the field, I realized I could only feel the night latch. I couldn't necessarily hear it. And when I got looking, the reason for that was because I had some buildup of my trap dip right there in that little notch. So all I did now is I just took my file and just scraped that dip out of there. So now we come in. You can see I'm working from underneath. You hear that click. That's the night latch resting on that little tab. At that point, that's where your pan should be level or sitting where you want it. And that's where you will want to test your pan tension from. That night latch, or that little click that you heard, is the last movement you want your trap to do before it fires. The next time that lip comes off this jaw or moves on that jaw, you want it to fire. You don't